I'm here today with my counterparts from New Jersey Attorney General Matt Platkin. Also from Connecticut, Connecticut Attorney General William Tong, and of course Marion Albert who's a senior attorney from the Lawyers for Civil Rights. I'm really proud to stand with each and every one of them who are partners in this work. In partnership with 14 other AGs, we have sued President Trump for taking action to end birthright citizenship, a flagrant violation of the 14th Amendment. You will hear from each of these individuals shortly, but I would like to start with a few remarks. Birthright citizenship is a century-old promise made to American-born babies. It ensures anyone born on U.S. soil is a citizen, regardless of race, ethnicity, or its parents' status. It is a promise of equality born out of a collective fight against oppression, against slavery, and its devastating harms. It is also the promise of America. Indeed, millions of Americans were born to immigrant parents, and hundreds of millions can trace their citizenship back to immigrant ancestors. Ancestors who built our country and fueled our economy under the protections of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. The president cannot change the Constitution with a Sharpie or a sham executive order. Our country's founders drafted a document, an essential document, that ensures each branch of government is checked by another to ensure one does not become too powerful. There is a well-established process for amending the Constitution in our country. Civics 101 teaches us it takes an act of Congress and ratification from 38 states to change the Constitution. What the president is attempting to do is illegal. This morning, we, and actually a total of 19 AGs from across the country, obviously some who are here and some who couldn't be here in person, will ask a judge to take immediate action to prevent the president's illegal order from taking effect. We are encouraged by judges who have already ruled that this order is blatantly unconstitutional. That goes against a binding century-old precedent set by the Supreme Court. We expect the court will agree with our argument. My office has and will continue to prosecute violent criminals that break our laws and harm our residents. But newborn babies are not criminals. This order targets innocent newborns that have done absolutely nothing wrong. They do not deserve to be punished solely because of their parents' immigration status or because their parents are here or on a work or student visa. They do not deserve to become stateless, where they have no rights or no protections or a claim to citizenship in any country. They are not invaders, they are human beings. Human beings who have been an essential part of the fabric of this country. They are our first female Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. They are my colleague from Connecticut, Attorney General William Tong. Newborn babies and children should never be political targets, and we will not allow the president to treat them as such. Where the federal government wants to help our residents succeed, to actually lower prices, stand up for consumers, protect our civil rights, we stand ready to collaborate. Unfortunately, what we've seen from them is cruelty, callous attempts to harm our residents, and sow tremendous fear and anxiety. Well, we are not afraid. We will continue to take collective action as AGs to fight back, and like our recent victory in lawsuit to stop the federal funding freeze, we will continue to work collaboratively across this country to protect birthright citizenship, access to life-saving gender-affirming care. We will stand up for diversity, equity, and inclusion, protect your private information from the richest man in the world, and so much more. However, I frequently tell my team I will not allow one little old man to distract us from our essential work, which has always been about protecting the residents of Massachusetts and our state's economy, and doing it while upholding the rule of law. This is what AGs do every day. We take on companies who harm and deceive our residents. Last year in this office, we received approximately $28 million restitution that we put back into the pockets of our residents. In addition to that, we fund nonprofits and community-based organizations who help us reach even more constituents across the Commonwealth. We don't strip them of their resources. Last year, we awarded organizations close to $3.5 million. We protect our residents' public safety and public health. This office's state police unit alone seized over 62,000 grams of illegal drugs and more than 125 illegal firearms. If and when the Trump administration wants to join us in tackling real issues that affect real people, we stand ready to collaborate and to work in partnership, because we know we certainly have no time to waste. I am extremely proud to work alongside an incredible coalition of 19 AGs in this case, and primarily Democratic AGs from across the country who are working hard every single day to protect our constituents, to ensure they have access to jobs, childcare, healthcare, and safety, necessities to thrive. This is what AGs do, have done, and will continue to do. I'm now proud to turn it over to my New Jersey counterpart, Attorney General Matt Platkin from New Jersey, who is a co-lead in this case. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank Attorney General Campbell for hosting us here in Boston and for her and her team's tremendous work on this case, along with my colleague from Connecticut, Attorney General Tong, and so many attorneys general across the country. Look, as attorneys general, we all took an oath to protect the residents of our states and to uphold the Constitution of our states and of this nation. We do that every day, and we do it across state lines on a regular basis. We've taken on social media companies who are harming our kids. We've taken on opioid manufacturers who profited off of an epidemic in this country. We've taken on gun manufacturers who profit off bloodshed in our states and driven violence down in all of our communities. So this is nothing new. And sometimes when a federal administration, as we're dealing with here, takes action to harm our residents, we are fulfilling that oath to protect them when we stand up for them. I've personally done that with Democratic administrations, and now we're doing it with respect to what President Trump did on his first day in office, late at night, when he, with a stroke of a pen, or as my colleague said, a Sharpie, rewrote the Constitution for the first time in 157 years. 157 years to remove birthright citizenship from the 14th Amendment. Birthright citizenship, which was enshrined in the 14th Amendment in the wake of the Civil War, because this country said we no longer want to have a debate about whether children born on United States soil are entitled to the rights and privileges of American citizenship. We settled that debate 157 years ago. And the Supreme Court, on multiple instances, has confirmed that we settled that debate. And yet, on his first day in office, the president said he wasn't going to be bothered with that history. He wasn't going to care about the plain text of our nation's foundational document. And he was going to say for a whole class of residents, born here, babies born here, who have no ties to any other country, that they're not American citizens, they're something else. Doesn't say what they are, doesn't say what they're entitled to, doesn't say what this country, how this country will treat them, but that they are somehow different than every other child that's been born on U.S. soil for well over a century and a half. That harms these kids, it harms our states, and like I said, when you violate the Constitution, when you hurt our residents, we are fulfilling our oath and doing our job to stand up for them. And in this case, and in many others, I'm really proud to work with an incredible coalition of attorneys general who we showed were prepared to stand up for the rights of our residents, to stand up and protect them from harm, and stand up for the rule of law. Because when we talk about the rule of law, it can sound like an abstract concept, but what it means is that the president, as powerful as he may be, is not a king, and he cannot rewrite the Constitution overnight with a stroke of a pen, that he has to be subject to the guardrails put in place in our Constitution and in our laws. And those laws bind Democratic presidents, Republican presidents, and everyone in between. And that is what the rule of law means. And that is what we are doing in this courtroom today. And that is why I'm proud to represent the 9.5 million people of the state of New Jersey, the state that is home to Ellis Island, to millions of immigrants who have made us, enriched our state in ways that I couldn't possibly count. It's my honor now to turn Attorney General William Tong.
Thank you, General Platkin, General Campbell. General, I've been Attorney General for 7 years now. This is the most beautiful press room I have ever seen. I can't stop taking in the view.
Did I try to take our money?
Oh, okay, sorry. We need more funding here for this office. Let me thank you and your team and General Platkin and your team for doing all the hard work in this case, and our colleagues. I have Mike Skoll, the Solicitor General of the state of Connecticut here, and Janelle Medeiros, Special Counsel for Civil Rights in our office, and we are so proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with you and this team to protect millions of American families and American babies and American children and this century-old promise. Last night, Matt and I had to grab a bite, and so we went to Chinatown, and I was reminded that we are still celebrating the Lunar New Year. Billions of people across the globe are celebrating the most important holiday to Asian people of Asian descent in this world, and millions of Americans who are also celebrating this holiday. And it reminded me as we sat down for soup dumplings, Matt's wife is also Chinese American, what we're doing here. And the history that brings us here. General Platkin referred to it in his remarks, but this isn't just about the rule of law. It's not just about the 14th Amendment. We're here, and this fight is rooted in slavery. Okay? In 1858, the Supreme Court in Dred Scott decided that Black American slaves were not just less than human, they were not citizens, they were not to be counted. And we fought a civil war. 660,000 Americans died. And in 1868, we solved that problem, right? We addressed America's original sin in part. I can't say that we solved all of those problems, but we said, we commit to a different course. And that our country ratified the 14th Amendment. And so speaking of Lunar New Year, it wasn't until 1898 when a Chinese American born in San Francisco named Wong Kim Ark, he left, went to China, and when he tried to come back to San Francisco, they wouldn't let him back in. And I believe, as the story goes, he stayed on a ship in the harbor waiting for his case to be resolved by the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court clearly said in that case, more than 100 years ago, that if you were born on American soil and subject to the jurisdiction of this country, you're an American, period. And so if you're an originalist, if you're a textualist, if you're Justice Gorsuch, are you hearing me, Justice Gorsuch? If you read the language, okay, it could not be more clear. You're born on American soil, you're an American. Why does that matter to so many of us? Why is it so personal? Because if that's not true, I'm not standing here. And that's true for a lot of people in this city, in this state. I bet a few more people in this room. We are not here without the guarantee of the 14th Amendment. My parents came here with nothing. They showed up of all places in Hartford, Connecticut. My dad had just 57 cents in his pocket. when he got off a Greyhound bus. He wasn't a birth tourist. He and my mom met in the Hartford area. They weren't looking for a place to have a baby, have an anchor baby, as they call us. They and my grandparents were running for their lives, like so many people. In America, Connecticut, of all places, offered them the best chance. And when I was born the first American citizen in my immediate family by right of my birth, an hour and a half south of here in Hartford, Connecticut, in Hartford Hospital. Not because I derived citizenship from my parents, Southwest, sorry. Not because I derived citizenship from my parents, but because I was born on American soil. And if my parents didn't know that I would be a citizen at that moment, what would they have done? I'll tell you what they wouldn't have done. They wouldn't have put everything they had into me and my sisters. But because I was born a citizen in this country, they knew they could sign a lease, they could buy a house, they could start a business, a Chinese restaurant, they could start another Chinese restaurant, they could build a life for themselves and our family and grow a business and build something not just for me, but for my sisters, my cousins, our extended family. They were able to make a life for all of us here in America because they knew that they could make that investment. It was guaranteed to them by the Constitution and by the 14th Amendment. And if they didn't know that, I have no idea where I would be. And I think about these kids. I think about how they would be treated if this guarantee were not real and were not enduring. What status would they have, as General Campbell asked? Would they be Americans? Would they be stateless? What would their parents do? Would their parents be able to sign a lease, buy a house, run a business? All of that goes out the window. And so we're here fighting not just for the rule of law, not just for the Constitution, but for the millions of Americans who contribute so much to our country, who help power this economy and make us who we are. It was Ronald Reagan, I just want to remind my Republican friends, it was Ronald Reagan who said that this is part of our essential character as a nation. It's part of the great beauty of our country. Let me close by saying that in this moment, and in the past 2 weeks, there have been some dark moments. And it's going to be tough in the days and I think the months and years ahead. And I have been asked by people in Connecticut, what gives you hope? What gives me hope? And I say what gives me hope is that my parents were two immigrants with nothing. They were not citizens when I was born, but that because I was born an American, my parents were able to open a restaurant and they worked themselves 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day. They worked themselves sick. I saw them do it because I worked side by side with them in that restaurant. And in one generation, I went from that hot Chinese restaurant kitchen to being the Attorney General of the state of Connecticut. That is America's promise. That is what we're fighting for today. Thank you.
Clap. I would now like to introduce Marian Albert, who is a senior attorney from Lawyers for Civil Rights, and they have filed a complementary case on behalf of expectant mothers. And so I'd like to welcome Marian to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marian Albert. I am a senior attorney at Lawyers for Civil Rights. Lawyers for Civil Rights represents an expectant mother, the Brazilian Workers Center, and La Colaborativa, organizations that have spent decades standing shoulder to shoulder with immigrant families. Today, they find themselves at the front lines of a battle against one of the most dangerous and unconstitutional attacks on immigrant communities we have seen in our time. The executive order issued by the Trump administration seeks to strip native-born Americans of their fundamental right to American citizenship. The executive order targets U.S.-born children of immigrant parents children who have done nothing wrong other than take their first breath on American soil, with one stroke of a pen, as has already been said, this administration seeks to rob children of their identity, their legal protections, and their future. These lawsuits halts them in their tracks. The harm to our clients, the families, and community organizations we represent is profound. The Brazilian Workers Center and La Colaborativa are flooded with daily calls from terrified parents. Mothers preparing to welcome their children into this world now face a terrifying question. Will my child be stateless and denied belonging in the only country they will ever know? Countless families who have built their lives here, worked hard, and contributed to their communities have now been told their children will have no legal home. The impact of this unlawful executive order goes beyond invoking terror. It is destabilizing entire communities. Without citizenship, these children will be denied passports, social security numbers, and the right to vote, work, and live freely in their own country. These children would be marked as outsiders, stateless, cast into a system that forces them to navigate life without the protections and rights that we all often take for granted. This executive order essentially creates a caste system where some children born in America are more American than others. It drags us back to the days of Dred Scott, where the Supreme Court ruled that citizenship was not a right for all, but a privilege determined by race and ancestry. That's the explicit purpose of the 14th Amendment, was to bury that shameful legacy. It is for all these reasons that the Supreme Court has called the revocation of citizenship a form of punishment more primitive than torture. And yet, that's exactly what this executive order does to innocent US-born children. Let me be clear, this is unconstitutional, this is un-American. The 14th Amendment leaves no room for debate. All persons born in the United States are citizens, and no president has the power to rewrite the Constitution at a whim, to strip away rights that have been upheld for more than a century. This is why we are fighting back through these lawsuits. We are standing up for the immigrant families who have helped build this country and continue to contribute to this country. The very principles of fairness and equality that define America are at stake. The country has the power, the court has the power to halt this order before it does irreversible harm. And we are confident that they will do that today. Our message today is clear. We will not allow this injustice to stand. We will fight for every child, for every family, and for the Constitution itself. Because in America, your birthplace, not your parents' immigration status, determines your citizenship. That is the law, and that is justice, and that is what we will always defend. Thank you.
Questions?
General Campbell, what does it say to you that 19 other AGs are all coming together to fight this?
Well, like I said, we are absolutely blessed, and I say we, of all of us AGs, to work in a coalition of mainly Democratic AGs, at least in this context, who not only are doing the great work of protecting our residents and our economies in our respective states, but doing it while upholding the rule of law. We all understand deeply and personally what the rule of law means. We are a society of laws. It is a contract between the Constitution and the constituents we serve to provide them basic rights and basic necessities. And it's our job to uphold that Constitution. And so this is just one of our many actions of late to demonstrate in practice and in action, not only that we regard the Constitution with the respect it deserves, but that we will do everything in our power to uphold it and not allow a president to dismantle it.
And what message do you have for families who are watching this right now who are in fear of their future families?
We would say, and I'll invite AG Platkin and Tong to come up as well, don't be afraid. Yeah. We understand this is a administration that is intent and strategizing how they can sow fear and anxiety. It is intentional. But we want folks, do not be fearful, keep your hope. We said before this president took office that we had tools in our respective offices to fight back, including running to court, getting a temporary restraining order, a preliminary injunction, whatever we needed to stop this administration from harming our constituents. Right now, as we stand here, we have won. We won in Rhode Island most recently on the federal funding freeze, this temporary restraining order. That is huge. We're going to continue to go back into Rhode Island, into that court, to ensure that that restraining order is implemented. And so we want folks to live their fullest lives and to reach out to their respective AGs if they have concerns. But at the end of the day, we're fighting for them. Please do not live in fear. They win if you do. And frankly, we're here to protect them against this administration that clearly is bent on sowing fear and anxiety and cruelty.
Given the number of actions that President Trump has taken since
You guys
entering
will-
office.
One at a time.
Given
Yeah.
the number of actions he has taken since entering office, how difficult has it been to respond to his administration, and what do you all want to be seen from legislative partners in particular?
It is challenging in that we have day jobs, and that work has not slowed down to protect consumers, to make sure folks are not perpetuating crime in our communities, to also ensure that we are manifesting the very promises that we said we're going to deliver on, including lowering prices of goods, protecting our consumers, protecting our elders, our most vulnerable, all the things he said he was going to do. We're doing that actually in reality. And so we are, as a collective and as a coalition of AGs across the country, constantly reviewing the executive orders. We are all working overtime, taking appropriate action to fight back, to protect our constituents so they do not live in fear and anxiety, and have demonstrated that we're willing to not only fight back in court, but to put out guidance, communication, other ways in which to protect our people so that they have the information about their rights and know that we're going to implement them.
AG
Robert next, and then
Campbell,
we'll
can you
go.
talk about Trump's policies seem to be focusing locally, and at the same time, as you mentioned, you're in Rhode Island, your work is going on the national level. What is that doing to the folks for the Commonwealth as far as what you were selected to do?
I think I can speak for all of my colleagues across the country that we get that our job is twofold. It is focusing locally on the issues that matter the most to our constituents and making sure we're delivering for them every single day, and we are doing that. We were doing it long before this president took office. And then also it's national in focus. At least in the Commonwealth, and I think New Jersey and Connecticut would say the same, we are leaders in our states. We are delivering on housing affordability issues, everything having to do with scams, particularly for our elders, making sure that people are not perpetuating crime or bringing in illegal guns and drugs into our communities. We are doing that work, but it does take a national focus because what we're realizing is if you are addressing climate change or public safety issues or public health issues or corporate greed that harms our constituents, this happens across state lines. So we have been working in partnership long before this president, and now we just at moments have to be reactive to the dismantling or the attempts to dismantle our Constitution, and we'll continue to do that in collaboration as well.
Do you have a strategy?
You've said multiple times that you feel confident today that a judge will side with you in this case. Obviously, the administration will likely have a response as well. What do next steps look like then for you as you continue this fight past this court case?
So we will obviously go into court today, our teams, and to fight against this Birthright Citizenship executive order. And we're confident, based on even what we just saw in Washington, that this judge will review all the facts, all the information presented to him, and rule in favor of our arguments. At the same time, we are filing at some point later today a preliminary injunction in Rhode Island. All of us are a part of that case, looking to not only enforce the temporary restraining order that would block this federal funding freeze that affects every part of our constituents' lives, and to ensure that it is actually enforced, but also we will come back together at some point later today as well, a lot happening today, to take on the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, and his minions, to ensure they are not taking information illegally from various agencies and using that to harm our people. So we're doing a lot in short order. It is collaborative in nature. It is strategic because we have to communicate, of course, and take action in a timely manner. So this is just one example today, the Birthright case, of the continued work we'll do going forward to protect our constituents and our state's
Does
economies.
it feel just like a game of whack-a-mole at this point for you?
I don't think it feels like that. I will just say, before this president took office, it was always incoming into our offices. We have hotlines. We have folks that are calling our offices, emailing us, saying someone just stole my money. There's a gang in my community that is perpetuating harm. Or an elder who said, cryptocurrency, I thought it was a good investment. Come to find out it was not. All of this is incoming on a regular basis. And what I, along with our colleagues and our teams, do every single day is to respond in real time, demonstrate the power of government to help actual people, and then on the policy front, come together across our states to share best practices so that at a systemic level, these harms go away. So this isn't new for us. And I often say, if people didn't know their AG, get to know your AG. It is significant, the work we do out of our offices, and in this time, it is extremely relevant, and I would say the most relevant.
And we'll do last question right here.
I'll do one more question here, and then I'm going to let my colleagues here respond to all of your questions, but give them opportunity to say a word.
How do you feel knowing there are lawmakers, mainly Republicans, who not only support Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship, but also the legislative effort to repeal that amendment?
I think it's hypocrisy. Many of the folks who are in government right now, who are serving our constituents, and we're blessed to have an elected role, it is a blessing that we all agree it's an incredible opportunity, but it's a blessing to serve as AGs of our states. Many electeds can trace their history back to immigrants. Or if they can't, in my case, born and raised here, my father born and raised in Boston before me, we can trace our history back to those folks who fought for me to stand here today, to be a citizen, and for that to be made crystal clear over a century ago. So it's sheer hypocrisy. And I think it's their attempt to not only attempt to undermine the Constitution and attempt to eradicate it, to also distract our people from the issues that matter the most, to create an us versus them, to create some divisiveness so that they don't have to do the real job that we do every single day of really bringing down prices for our constituents, ensuring they have access to health care, that corporations are not harming them, and also financially benefiting from that harm, that social media companies are not increasing the mental health epidemic in our respective states, and our children are not dying as a result. We are focusing on the real work. So when I say our constituents should not focus on fear and anxiety, we implore them not to join their respective AGs in this fight, because we'll fight back to focus on the issues they care about while holding this administration accountable. And now I'm going to invite my colleagues to say a couple of words before we go to the courthouse.
Just real quickly, first of all, for everyone in Boston, you're extraordinarily lucky to have Attorney General Campbell. I can speak directly to her commitment to each and every one of you, and she's an incredible colleague, as is her entire team. Just two quick things, just responding to several questions. The first is every issue, and I think we all view this the same way, every issue that we address in New Jersey, I look at through the same lens. Is what somebody's doing, is it breaking the law? And is it hurting our residents? If the answers to those two questions are yes, then it's my job to stand up and protect the people in my state. By the way, if you come to my state, you'll see a lot of people in my own political party who don't like some of the things that we've stood up to. Because what we've done consistently is fight for the residents of our state. And every single issue, whether it's President Trump issuing an order or anybody else, that's the lens through which we are looking at it. It's not whether I agree with him personally. He's duly elected. By the way, you don't hear any of us questioning that. He's duly elected. He has the right to put forth a policy agenda that he sees fit. What he is not entitled to do is violate the Constitution, violate the laws of this nation, and hurt our residents. And the second thing I would say, and I think this is clear, is we were prepared. We filed this case less than 24 hours after President Trump signed that clearly unconstitutional order on January 20th. Last week, as Attorney General Campbell noted, when this administration froze trillions of dollars in spending because the president woke up and didn't like something somewhere in this country, they can't exactly say what. Trillions of dollars of spending that provides health care to 75 million Americans, pays for seniors' nursing homes, funds law enforcement. They actually cut, in my state, they ended drug trafficking enforcement. They told millions of kids who benefit from Head Start that we don't know, and their parents, that we don't know if you're going to have wraparound services. That's what they did last week, and less than a day after they did that, we were in court, and once again, a court said no. So again, we are doing our jobs. We are standing up for the rights of our residents, we are protecting them from harm, and we are standing up for the rule of law. And I think I speak for everyone when I say I will do that 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, no matter who it's against. If they're hurting people in my state, we're going to fight for them.
I have a question about the language in the executive order, and AG Tong, if you want to speak to this.
Sure.
It says the 14th Amendment citizenship, persons who were born in the United States but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
Yeah.
In your view,
It's garbage. It's garbage legal analysis. Just read the words. The 14th Amendment could not be more clear, which is why there hasn't been a serious debate about this for 100 years. And so I know they're playing games with subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And, you know, if you're in America standing here, you're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, folks. You're subject to the state laws and the criminal laws of the state of Massachusetts. And federal laws that pertain to anybody in this country. So enough with that. You know, I think they're trying to find something that's not there. Let me just echo what General Platkin said about what we're doing here and how ready we are, how ready we've been. Although I will say, as ready as we are, you really can't be ready for something this damaging and this destructive. Not just in the Birthright case, but also in the federal funding case and in all the other issues that we are taking up today and going forward. But what General Platkin reminded us of is that Democratic attorneys general are standing up. We're ready, and we are not just the first line of defense. In many cases, we're the last line of defense. And we are never going to quit on Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut. On the people of this country, we're never going to surrender, and we're never, ever going to back down. That's our commitment to the people in our states, and we take it very, very seriously. The final thing I'll say, just to put this in context, when we sued on the OMB memo in the federal funding case, and let's just remind ourselves what happened there. President Trump and his administration arrogated to shutting off all federal funding at once without authority. Utterly lawless, brazen, unconstitutional action to cut off all federal funding at once. And then they said, we don't really mean it, and we rescind the memo. And at the same time, funding portals for Medicaid, Head Start were still locked in Connecticut and across the country. And who does that hurt? It hurts kids. Who does a ban on birthright citizenship hurt? Children. I said during our press conference in Connecticut that the federal funding action represented a war on the American people. This is a war on America's children. What is the point of going after kids who have, other than us and their parents, have no way to protect themselves and defend themselves? That's why we're here, for America's children and families. And
That's right.
The final thing I'll say is, in households in which, there's this fantasy that you can somehow take the undocumented people and the undocumented families and put them on a plane or put them over here and remove them. In households in America in which there's an undocumented person, 70% of those households are of mixed status. That means you've got an undocumented person, you've got citizen children, you've got people with green cards, people with temporary status, you've got dreamers. And so when you go after any immigrant and you go after any undocumented immigrant, you go after that whole family, the whole community. You blow the whole thing up. That's why this is a war on America's children and America's families.
Thanks, everyone. That's all we have time for today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.